Hello everyone. I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm so grateful that you're listening, subscribing and commenting. I really appreciate the support. In this one, I wanted to speak to you about living or having grown up in an environment where there's a lot of strife or a lot of conflict. It kind of stays with you even through adulthood. I'll read a comment that I recently got that really speaks to this, and then I'll speak a little bit more about what I'm trying to say. For instance, I recently had to move back home with my parents for the first time in many years, and I constantly feel this tension in the house that I haven't really felt since I was young. Like I'm always on guard for someone to burst into my room and berate me. And this individual said a lot of other things as well, but this was the main thing that I want to speak about in this video. The reason why I'm doing this video is because we need to realize that, we always assume that, okay, now I'm an adult, I have a job, I make loads of money, I live on my own, and, I'm officially like whatever age I might be, 34 or 37 or 52, whatever it might be. And so I consider myself a grown-up, which is such a weird word, but I'm a grown-up now. And so now it means that all of those things that happened in my childhood don't affect me anymore. All of those things that happened in my childhood are completely gone. I don't have to think about them anymore. They haven't stayed with me like a shadow, which they do actually. And they're completely ignorable now. Like you kind of think, okay, I don't have to think about it anymore. I'm fine. Everything's okay. And then suddenly something happens like this where, in the pandemic, you kind of have to move back home, or you have to deal with your parents again in a way that kind of reminds you of your childhood. And all of a sudden you're back again. Like you're back into that mode of being a child again. Like you're back into that mode of being young and frail and helpless and powerless and weak and overpowered and controlled and just completely powerless. Like I've said powerless twice because that's literally how you felt probably as a child. If you lived in a situation like that, where there was constant tension, constant fighting, your parents were constantly fighting, and you constantly were in a state of hyper-awareness. You were constantly, making sure that you made the least amount of noise, or you did the least amount of things to annoy your parents, so they wouldn't start berating you as well, or they wouldn't start shouting at you or beating you up. Whatever your childhood was like, if you lived in a tension-filled childhood, you can imagine that that's kind of stuck with you. Even though you might not be aware of it, even though all of a sudden you think, all right, yeah, cool, I'm an adult, everything's cool, and nothing to worry about. I don't have to think about the stuff that happened in my childhood anymore. It's still stuck with you. It's still there. It is in your body. It's in your mind. It's in your habits probably. You don't even realize that it's in your habits, and has been associated with you, and you're not going to be able to get rid of it until you actually look at it in the face and be like, all right, so this is what's happening right now. And I think the pandemic is a really good thing because it's allowing a lot of people the time and the space all of a sudden to think about things that they probably ignored or stashed into the bottom of their hearts or their minds for decades, because they're like, well, no, I'm too busy, I'm working and I'm doing things and I'm moving from place to place, and it's very easy for us to ignore all those things. All of a sudden we're back in our parents' house, or we're living in a situation where we're by ourselves in the apartment all day long, no conversation, only Zoom calls, we can't go outside. And, all of this lockdown and pandemic stuff all of a sudden brought up all of this time, space, and energy to think about things that constantly, or previously, you would never have thought about. But now you're constantly thinking about it, right? So not to say that, that it's a good thing. Some people are probably not ready for it yet. Some people probably are dealing with things that they're like, all right, you know what? I don't think I'm even ready for this. I don't know what's going on. I feel overwhelmed. I feel tired. I feel mentally and physically and energetically exhausted. And so perhaps you're not ready for it. But if you've been placed in a situation right now where you are dealing with things from your childhood, it's probably the universe's hint for you that says you're ready. You're strong enough. It's time for you to deal with this stuff. Deal with all of these attachments and these things that have happened in your childhood that's still stuck to you, like a limpet to a ship, and get over it. It's your time to get over it so you can move past it, so it doesn't affect your children if you have children. It doesn't affect your partnerships if you have partnerships. It doesn't affect your relationships if you have them or if you don't. Either way, to realize that these things are still affecting you no matter if you realize them or not. And then we don't realize that it's affecting us, and so it affects all of these relationships that we have with other people without us even knowing that's happening. And this kind of stuff, I wanted to use my own example now to kind of delineate this. When I first moved out of my parents' house, it was as if I moved into a space downtown Toronto. For the first time I was living on my own, and it was as if I was living by myself, and it was as if I was living in a space where it was the most calmest, the serenest, the quietest space ever. And it was not really, but energetically it was, because I wasn't living in my parents' house anymore, and I was not carrying, as I said, that childhood stigma or trauma of constantly being aware, constantly be hyper aware, because oh my god, they might fight at any moment and I have to go and mediate, or they might get violent and I have to call someone for help, or I have to go and mediate, or deal with something that might happen. So that constant hyper awareness, the constant thing of, oh, I need to be aware, I need to have constant tension in my mind and my body, all of a sudden all of that stuff dissipated. And even though I was living in an extremely noisy downtown apartment, downtown Toronto, right next to a club, it still felt like I was living in heaven. I still felt like I had moved to the calmest, most serene, most quiet place on the planet. It was because that energetic nonsense, that energetic disturbance that was in the atmosphere at my parents' house wasn't here anymore, wasn't with me anymore, it wasn't affecting me anymore. And so of course, as an individual, I felt like, wow, I've moved to heaven. I moved to the quietest place in the world. I can't believe that I didn't realize that I was living in such a noisy, energetically noisy place before, right? And so, I moved further out even. I moved from downtown Toronto to Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is 10,000 miles away from here, or something like that. And even then again, it was even more so like I had moved to heaven. It felt even more that, oh wow, I've left everything behind. All of that noise, all that energetic tension, all of that constant fighting and berating and disturbance, I'd left all of it behind. And it felt like I literally had moved to heaven. I felt like, and that's the reason I always constantly go back with joy in my heart. I love my parents and I love Toronto, but I go back to Chiang Mai with joy in my heart, because I'm like, right, I'm moving to a place where there's no noise, there's no tension, even though technically there's a lot more noise. Canada's very quiet, if you can think about it. But Chiang Mai has a lot of scooters and motorbikes and people yelling, not people yelling necessarily, foreigners yelling, I should say, foreigners yelling, because Thai people are very quiet. But there's a lot more noise there. Noise, a physical noise. But energetically, I feel much, 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 much calmer, because the constant tension that I'm living with back home has dissipated, right? It's not there because there's no one around me. I'm by myself, all by myself, amazingly, awesomely all by myself in my apartment, no one there, just chilling out in my own energy created space, right? And so I wanted to kind of delineate this, or I wanted to mention this, because a lot of you probably are in that mode of or frame of mind where you're thinking, no, I've kind of dealt with all that stuff already. You're not speaking to me. I'm done with that. I've already dealt with it. I'm totally fine. And it's kind of funny because, a lot of you are probably the ones who are actually living with your parents right now, again, after a long while. You were probably thinking the same thing. Oh, I'm fine. It should be okay. I can live with them. I have nothing to worry about, I can deal with it. I'm strong enough now. And then you actually go and live with them and you realize, oh my God, I can't imagine how I lived with them before. And that's exactly, now, obviously I know I have lots of different tools and techniques to kind of deal with my family and with the constant fighting and all that stuff and the tension in the air. So I know how to deal with it using meditation and other self-care tools. But really, literally, as soon as I go out, even if I just step out into the park next to the house, I instantly feel my body relaxing. My body's tension just kind of seeping away and being like, oh, right, this is what it feels like to be in a space which is not filled with energetic tension, right? And so you really have to be mindful of that for yourself, because as I've said many times before to you, your body knows more than your mind does. Your mind is able to really create stories and be like, yeah, everything's okay. And all of a sudden your body tells you, no, it's not okay. You're holding a lot of tension in your shoulders or your belly or your jaw or your hands or whatever it might be, wherever you hold your tension, and your body will tell you the truth, right? All of this to say, don't let your mind fool you, right? I've said this before, but don't let your mind fool you. Don't let yourself be fooled by thinking, oh yeah, everything's okay. You're over it. You're not probably over it. And this instance of the fact that you're going back home and all of a sudden realizing, whoa, what is this? Is telling you that there's something that you need to work on. There's some stuff in your mind, your body, your energetic structure that needs to be let go of. They're probably carrying over from when you were a child, right? It's been stuck to you and you need to get rid of it. Otherwise, you're not able to move forward, okay? I hope this makes sense. I hope I was able to explain myself to you. It's such a random topic, and I'm sure I've missed a bunch of things that I should have said about it. But if you have questions about this, if you think I've missed something, please comment below and I shall do a follow-up video. Okay? Again, thank you so much, and I shall see you the next time around. Bye for now.